Welcome back, guys. In this video, I'm going to talk about procedural programming versus object-oriented programming. So there's two types of ways of programming. There's two ways of programming, two concepts, two theories, I don't know how you want to call it. But you can either do procedural programming, or you can go with object-oriented programming. Now, everybody's doing object-oriented programming nowadays. It's the new craze. Well, not the new craze. It's been a while. But everybody's using that. What's the difference and which ones to use for trading applications? So procedural programming is basically, something like this. If, the stock is doing that and, the price is above X, then, buy whatever, then if you get a fill, send another order, and then it's just lines of code. And then once you're done, you go back, you loop back, and you start again, right? And you're done, you loop back, and you start again. So procedural programming is basically just a big chunk of code. Object-oriented programming is different. Object-oriented programming, you're going to create objects. And an object could be, let's say, a level 1, right? Which a level 1 is basically just going to be the bid. And how am I going to draw this? Let's say, oh shit, no. Oh, can I go back? Yes. Good. Okay, so level 1. So if I go, you can create an object that's going to be the level 1, right? And in that object, you're going to have, your bid price, your ask price, and whatever. Then you can have another object, which is, let's say, a moving average. And that moving average is going to have the prices of a moving average for each day. And then you can have something else, let's say a stock. Let's say a stock here. And a stock is going to have a symbol, but a stock, this object here, this is an object, can actually have other objects. So it can have a level 1 as well. It can have this object. And it also can have a moving average, so this object, right? So basically you have this object that has other objects. And, in object-oriented programming concepts, I think there's inheritance and encapsulation, and you got to read about it. Or obviously, probably about object-oriented programming if you're doing this series, or if you want to compare them. But basically, it's helpful because if you have something, let's say you have a level 2 object as well, level 2, okay, which is going to be the book, right? And it also has that. Well, a level 2, you can have some properties that are private, so only the level 2 can access them, and some properties that are public, so other objects can access. So maybe the prices at different levels are public, so a stock can access those prices. But things that aren't necessary for them to access are kept private. So, and then there's inheritance, where you're saying, okay, well, maybe the moving average and the RSI and the Bollinger Band, these are all technical indicators. They can all inherit from technical indicators, right? So this could be a parent class, and all these other classes inherit from it, right? So this is the parent and these are children. So basically like saying a feline is a parent and a cat is the child of that parent. So they can have common traits. They all have maybe a timestamps and different things that they all share, or that they can all share, so they would inherit these things from this parent class. So why would we choose one or the other? Which one is better? So they're different. Procedural programming is going to be faster, right? And why is it faster? Because it's all within the same piece of memory, right? You have your stack, you have your heap, and then, you have all of these things, all of these lines of codes are all within your memory, right? All in the same block. Now, when you're doing something like this, your stock might be here, and then your moving average is here, and then your level 1 is here. So you're constantly jumping from one zone in the memory to the next, and then coming back to access information here and going back to access information there. So there's a lot of time wasted, right? So it's not as fast. It's also not as fast because then every object that you create is going to have a lot more code, code to make it independent from one another and work by itself and make sure that the data sent and received is checked on. So there's more code, so it's slower. But even though it's slower, it's way more practical. Why? Because you can reuse these objects as much as you want. I can have, now that I have this stock, well, I have this other stock here that also looks at the moving average but doesn't have a level 2. It's looking at the RSI as well. But then I have another strategy completely. And this other strategy has other symbols, and these other symbols have, some moving averages and some indicators. So basically, you can reuse these same objects in different projects, different strategies, different whatevers. You're always going to have access to them. So if you're trading and you are going to be a trader, this is the way to go. So we're a trading firm. So when we program something once, it's there and we can use it for a bunch of different things, right? It's not only once. So when you're doing procedural, it's going to be harder because if you want to reuse part of this code, you're going to have to erase some things, but that's going to affect some other things and it's not really going to be as clean. But if you're doing object-oriented programming and you have a moving average and then you decide to start a new strategy and you need a moving average, you just use the same object. It's still going to work, right? And again, the difference in speed is not going to matter for people like us, who are not going extremely high frequency. So even if it's time sensitive, it's not extremely high frequency, this is going to be the way to go. So I highly, 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 highly recommend going object-oriented programming. And if speed is so important, there are ways to improve on that or have something within both. But regardless, I highly suggest going object-oriented programming. For this series, we are going to be going object-oriented programming. So I think next video, we're going to be covering, we're going to do the design, and the video after that, we'll start coding already. So let's get started. I'll see you guys in the next video.